Welcome to Evolve to Succeed, the podcast that brings together entrepreneurs, founders, business leaders and experts to talk about their journeys and explore the link between personal and business success. I'm your host, Warren Munson, founder of Evolve, a coaching, training and development company focused on enabling business and personal success and creating a community of like-minded individuals. Whether that be through our peer groups, one-to-one coaching, our training and development programs for you and your teams, or through our content and events, our mission is to get the best out of each individual and inspire them to be better both in life and in business. If you want to learn more about Evolve, including our beautiful co-working space in Ashley Cross in Poole, then please go to evolvemembers.com, where you'll find great content, insights, details of all of our services, and also information on our forthcoming events. For now though, let's get on with the show. This week I'm chatting to James Wythe, a fully qualified health coach and professional food blogger whose aim is to inspire you to cook easy and delicious food at home. This would make James interesting in itself, but what makes James really interesting is his own journey. James' story started in 2010 when, just after completing his sports science degree at Bournemouth Uni, he fell ill with mysterious symptoms such as severe fatigue and headaches. These symptoms got worse and worse, and after multiple tests and visits to bemused doctors, James was eventually diagnosed with ME, or chronic fatigue syndrome. So severe was his condition, James was bedbound and needed full-time care for several months, and it took him 3 years to feel normal again. During this long battle, James began consulting with a nutritionist, and it was from this that he began his own health journey, learning to cook simple, delicious dairy and gluten-free dishes at home. James attributes this clean diet to playing a large part in his recovery and is now so inspired to not only help people eat more healthily, he also encourages discussion and support around ME. James is also launching his first cookbook on March the 3rd, so I thought this would be a perfect time to sit down and hear his incredible story. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome, James, to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Really interested in our conversation today. For the listeners, we're going to cover such a variety of different things, a bit about your journey, a bit about what good nutrition is, what being an influencer really means and what that story and journey's like, and also you're launching a new cookbook. So we're going to talk about how you've gone about being published. But I think we've really got to start. For everybody that comes on this podcast, they've had a journey, they've been experiences in life have led them to where they are today, but this is certainly the case for you, James. So for our listeners, perhaps you could just touch on where you found yourself in 2010.
Yeah, so it's a long time ago. I suddenly basically found myself in a bad situation. I woke up one morning not feeling too good, and I just didn't really know what was wrong. I felt like it was food poisoning. I'd been out for dinner, had those symptoms, and I was sick for probably 3-4 days straight, something like that, physically sick.
So that's, physically
sick. And I just wasn't feeling well, and I just thought I'd had food poisoning before. It just felt pretty much like that. But then I just didn't really recover from it. I was really lethargic. From someone that was so sporty beforehand, I just really didn't feel myself, and this was going on for weeks now. Spoke to the doctors. They said, it might just be taking your body some time to recover. I just kept pushing myself. I'm someone that will always, I'm an achiever. I'm someone that will just push myself and get the best from myself, and I wouldn't sort of accept that was, that I was in not
you're
feeling
in this
great.
place. So
I sort of just thought, right, I'll be fine, just keep pushing. I got to a point where I went on a holiday with my parents, and I just hit rock bottom when we came back. I couldn't talk. I'd lost like 3 stone in a couple months.
Wow.
I was, not able to really hold a conversation at all. I just felt awful. And it really, I was in bed and I just remember saying, my parents were like, this is not right. Like, we need to speak to doctors.
Not normal,
yeah, it's
to
not
lose that amount of weight, and for somebody to be active to just be kind of shut
like
off
that
from the world. Yeah.
So my dad had to physically carry me into the doctor's surgery. Like, he had to carry me in his arms into the doctor. That's how bad I was.
How old were you at this stage?
So I was 21.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Not
so even
a great
for your
time.
parents, formative years and all of that, but not. Yeah, it's not what your parents expect.
No, exactly. And especially from what I was high energy sportsman. I grew up. I probably had ADHD, if anything. I was so hyper.
Right. Okay.
And I channeled all my energy into sport, and then I focused on golf when I was about 13. Played for Dorset juniors team, men's team. I went to college in Guildford to play golf. I went to Bournemouth Uni. So I was like. Yeah. Traveling the country, playing big events. So I was, trying to become.
And was that your path? Was it to become a professional golfer?
That was
the goal.
Yeah, that was where I sort of dreamt to go. So for me to then be from that situation where I could walk 10 miles a day to then being in bed, scary moment. And I went in the doctor's surgery, and I just remember sitting across from the doctor, and he said, talking at me. All of these things, and I just said ambulance. That was it. That was all I could get out. So they rushed me in because they thought I might have a brain tumour, because my doctor knew me for years and he knew that I wasn't right. Yeah. So I went in, rushed in, blue lights, everything, and I had every scan you could imagine. I was in for 2 weeks, nothing. Yeah. Like, they thought, they didn't know what was wrong with me. Right. They thought probably as a virus. Go home, rest, you'll be all right.
You'll recover.
Yeah, and I went home, rested, and I was in bed for 2 years. Yeah, so it was 2 years bedbound, 4 years housebound. So I had a 6-year stretch, and it was long. We've been through what we've been through recently. Yeah. People have been locked up, but it was tough. Okay. Yeah, very tough. So, and I had no answers, really. I was diagnosed after 6 months with ME, also known chronic fatigue syndrome. Yeah. But that was it. I was kind of given a diagnosis. They said, don't really know how you can get better, don't know really what it is.
Yeah, because they don't, do they?
No.
They diagnose chronic
after
fatigue
6 months,
and ME, but they don't... I mean, is it that... Were they right in their original diagnosis that is a form of virus, or...?
It can be triggered by... people, I feel like it's a bit of a blanket term that's on
people. It feels that way.
Yeah, it does.
Feels like they just define that.
If you've got a certain symptoms that go on for 6 months, you have ME.
That's your box.
Yeah, but people can have it coming from, stress or big triggers in their life. Like, say someone in their family passes away, people can get, go into that from there. Whereas I've come in from like a potentially food poisoning or like some viral infection. Don't really know. Doesn't make sense.
And you've never you never would know what triggered it. Was it fatigue? Was it food? Was it
you don't know.
Gut health or whatever it may be?
So we just got diagnosed with that, and then I was in bad way for 6 months. That first 6 months after I was in hospital, I went back into hospital multiple times. I had allergic reactions to medication. Yeah. I was offered antidepressants, and I was like, well, I don't know. Like, am I depressed? Is this... Because I didn't know what was going on. No. I was like, well, I'll try them, see if it is a miracle. I don't know. Didn't go well. Like, They put me in hospital. I had severe allergic reaction to one of them, put me in hospital for another 5 days. So I was like hypersensitive to things, and it was just really a tough time. And the doctors were sort of, maybe it is depression. I think I was obviously upset and like sad with what my life had turned into.
Well, it was from where it was.
And it was probably pretty standard to be a little bit down about where, from where I was trying to go to being in bed for 6 months. And I couldn't text, I couldn't read, for the first 3 months, I couldn't have a conversation with someone. So I was nearly in a coma, it was very, very bad. I was in a dark room, couldn't watch TV, I was in a very bad way. So it was nearly, I often thought that I might not make it, it was that bad.
The low was that low.
Yeah, and it was awful. Yeah, absolutely awful.
So what changed then? You know, how did you come through that? And you talk about 2 years bedbound, 4 years housebound. What changed? And there's got been a point where there started to be this bit of an up curve.
Yeah.
And how did that come about?
So I had a nutritionist. So back at the 6 month mark, my mum was like, right, we're getting no support from the doctors, we're getting no answers. I'm going to start researching myself. So she, spent so much time looking into it, researching. So we got a nutritionist over to my house. She would sit in the corner. My mum would sit on the bed, and I was obviously in bed. I couldn't speak really, and my mum would just say, what's happened? She suggested to take a few supplements. I was too scared at the start because I'd obviously had reactions to medication.
And it was just another pill and something else coming into your body.
Yeah, so I was like, don't... So I was so scared. We used to have to cut up vitamin C tablets into quarters. That's how scared I was of taking anything because of what I'd been through. So I slowly took supplements. She recommended I cut out gluten and dairy, so I did that. My mum was my full-time carer for those 2 years that I was bedbound, so she was cooking for me, looking after me. And I would say, it wasn't a quick transition, but I slowly... The first time I stepped outside was after a year, and by stepping outside, I would walk to the window, which is a couple meters. I'd come back. I'd wait 3 or 4 days. I'd go back to the window. Really, because I'd lost all my leg strength.
Of course. You forget. Being bedbound, you lose all that muscle and
everything.
The physique. Yeah,
you do. Strength. And I'd gained so much of that from golf. I had really strong legs, and going. They literally went within a few weeks. It's scary how quick you lose. So I did remember how to walk, but I needed support. My dad I'd have to hold on to him whilst I because they were my legs were so weak and I had no energy. And I gradually built myself up to a point where I could go downstairs. I'd have to wait down there for a few hours, come back up. First time I went outside, I could walk down the driveway. I've actually got a photo. It's a really powerful one of the first time I ever walked outside. My mum took a photo from the window. So I've still got that. That's going to be a photo that's in the book as well. So I just gradually started to build myself up, but very crazily slow. It was very, very slow progression, to the point where I then, after 2 years, I thought it was the time that I needed a little challenge and move. So I moved out with my partner at the time, who's now my wife. We moved into a flat together in Bournemouth, and she was out working, paying for rent, and I was trying to survive on my own kind of thing. And that's where I started to begin the passion for food started to come through, because I'd obviously been gluten and dairy free for a couple of years now. I'd never really cooked that much. And I was having to do it myself and survive. And I knew that getting takeaways and things wasn't going to be something that helped me on my journey.
So to that point, you'd put some of your recovery or clearly down to being dairy, gluten-free, nutrition. But it was at that point that you started to show your own interest in it, was it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and because I had to cook a couple times a day, breakfast, lunch, maybe dinner if Louisa was home late. So I gradually it was the only thing I focused on, because I had nothing else to do. I was in bed. When I say housebound, I was either in bed or on the sofa, laying down. So cooking was a real challenge to me. I'd have a chair in the kitchen and I'd sit there and I'd chop a few things. And we're talking 10 years ago. The gluten and dairy free market is not what it wasn't. What it is now. It's crazy now. You can go in the supermarket, the whole aisle. You can get everything. Back then, it was difficult.
You're lucky to have one one little shelf, corner of a shelf that would be gluten free.
Yeah. So I had to teach myself how to cook with it's a lot of people sort of don't think about it, but simple cooking, a lot of it is gluten free anyway. If you just make a stew or a curry or things like that, it's only the added ingredients that you put into it that don't make it gluten free. So if you're keeping it quite veg based or some meat or fish or something, a lot of it is gluten free naturally.
As such.
And so I just taught myself from zero skills. I didn't even know how to chop anything. I just gained a passion for it. You know, it was something that got me out of bed a couple times a day. It gave me a purpose, I guess, a focus.
Yeah. And
I just really enjoyed it. And then it reached a point where people were asking, my friends and family said, you know, you've got quite through this time I was recovering as well and getting slowly stronger and things like that. And I just, they said you should share your story and your recipes. And so I started the blog.
Wow.
5 years ago.
5 years ago?
Yeah, 5 years ago.
And we'll talk about over 300,000 followers now?
Yeah, probably more than that, yeah.
Okay.
350 or so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fine. Well, we'll talk about that and growing a following in a moment. But let's just touch on some of that nutritional stuff, because you talk about... Is the main things when you focus on your nutrition and when you talk to others about nutrition, is it about being gluten and dairy free, or is that... And what do they mean, and what are the benefits of being gluten and dairy free, or is it a wider kind of nutritional piece as well?
I think I obviously mentioned I had a nutritionist. Then when we moved to Bournemouth, I had another nutritionist. So I worked really closely with her. It's so individual, especially recovering from like a long-term illness. I think it's really important to seek like a professional's opinion, because they can really dive into your history and things like that. For me, gluten and dairy, I think dairy was an issue my whole life. I used to get terrible stomach migraines as a kid, but back then no one really knew about it that much. Like, it'd be a lot easier to sort of diagnose it now. Back then no one, so I just put up with it type thing, and I'd be sick quite a lot. Gluten, my dad's actually been diagnosed celiac in the last 4 years, so there's definitely something in the family there.
DNA of the family,
So for me, that's helped me. Not necessarily going to help everyone, but gluten dairy can be quite inflammatory for your gut, and I think for most people that are suffering with long-term illness, it might help. You know, it could. I always saw it as myself as, it's not going to hurt me. It's not going to make me worse. Like,
it's going to make me better. It improved. It made you better.
It did help me
from where you were to where you are today.
But I've always sort of felt, you know, eating more home-cooked foods, doing certain things, I was in such a bad place it couldn't make me worse. So I thought it was worth exploring and doing.
Yeah. So would you describe your cookbook as a healthy food cookbook, or is it a gluten-free cookbook? Is it a dairy-free cookbook? Kind of what genre do you put that in then?
A bit of everything. So I've adapted my recipes over the years. Because I've been gluten dairy-free, all of my content is gluten dairy-free, and the book is as well. But I've adapted over the last few years to not make it so sort of strict for other people. So say, for example, you might want to make one of my recipes that uses gluten-free flour. You could use normal flour. Because, you know, it can be more expensive for people, might not want to do that or need to do that. So I really have tried to make it accessible for everyone. So I've made it simple recipes that anyone can make, whether you have no skill level, whatever. And I've made it so you could use whatever milk you want. I'll use a plant-based milk, almond milk or something like that, but you could use normal milk. So I've tried to make it as accessible for everyone there's no like stigma there, there's no barriers to entry for people.
Which is interesting, because obviously we met for the first time today when you come in to do this recording, and I did wonder, were you going to be evangelical about, food, nutrition? Or was there going to be this general kind of just eat healthy, be healthy, enjoy life kind of approach? And I think it's the latter, isn't it?
I think it's a lot about balance, and probably people assume about me that I eat perfectly, or in quotations perfectly. It's not a thing. Like, that is, I think I've learned that along my journey, that sometimes I want to eat something that's probably not optimal. I would have to have it gluten and dairy free just because of my lifestyle, but if I want to get a certain takeaway or something like that, it's fine. But I'm just not doing it every night.
Definitely.
And I think leading a healthy lifestyle is actually a balancing act between what you can do the majority of the time.
Yeah.
That it's not about going, because everyone in January goes to the gym like every day.
Stops
February
drinking, goes to the gym. Yeah.
Do everything.
Yeah.
And then February comes and they're like, oh, I'm burnt out now.
I can't do that anymore.
No. So I've just steadily, I'm very methodical. I've just steadily built myself back.
Yeah.
With my health, my strength, things like that. That I don't think people do that enough. They go gun ho, all out, everything. But I think it's just slow and steady wins the race.
Okay, I like that. And I was gonna ask you, some healthy eating tips, or somebody that's listening to this thinking, I've perhaps been on a few fad diets. I've tried this, I've tried that. And it's not all about losing weight. I just want to feel healthier, better, have more energy. Some hints and tips. I suppose the first one I would assume is see a nutritionist.
Yeah.
Go and get your personal story sorted.
Yeah, especially if you've got underlying issues.
Yeah.
Go and speak to someone. If it's generally just down to you're generally but you just want to eat a bit better, buy my book.
Yeah. There's the plug.
Just check out some. I've always given so many recipes out, so you don't even have to buy the book. There's tons on Instagram as well, but just try some of them, see how you get on. They are all supermarket ingredients, accessible for everyone. That's what I've tried to achieve with all of my content. There's no crazy ingredients that you've got to find online somewhere.
They're
or whatever.
All readily available in most supermarkets.
A lot of it's store cupboard ingredients, chickpeas, beans, lentils, all of that type of few fresh ingredients that you can get on the way home. So I've tried to make it as that, because people have this, if they can find an excuse, they'll find it. So if they're like, oh that ingredient, I don't know where I'll get that, they won't make it. So I've tried to make the recipes so give someone the least amount of excuse to not make it as possible. And I think I've really nailed that in the book. It's so simple to follow. I'm dyslexic myself, so I've always written recipes in a real simple way. Less words, straight to the point.
This is what you do.
No messing about. Very simply laid out. Because when I started, I'd look at books and there'd be paragraphs of things of how to do something, and my brain just can't process it. I just go off charts. I just end up doing it myself, winging it. So that's how I've learned to adapt recipes to be so simple for people to follow.
Fantastic. And those people that are thinking they, perhaps can't afford to go to see a nutritionist or just want to do things, there's some often said is just start taking one. If you think you react to something, just take one thing out at a time. And again, I suppose it's don't do the January thing, don't do the gun-ho thing. Would you kind of advocate that as well? Yeah,
I'd say that generally the way that a nutritionist will even actually test whether you have, with a lot of them, you see these allergy tests online, they're not actually what a professional would use. Often it's a case of taking certain things out of your diet, following a professional's advice, taking them out of your diet, seeing how you feel, and then reintroducing those to then see how you feel. So someone that might be suffering with not being able to eat gluten or dairy, for example, dairy is a really common one. You'll take it out, you might start feeling more energy, or your skin might be better, things like that. No stomach pain. Reintroduce it, so you take it out, those things slowly start to improve, so you think that might be something. Reintroduce it, you start having that again, and then that's generally what a nutritionist will follow as well. So it's an elimination diet, and then they'll reintroduce things to see. But again, you can't go gluten-free, dairy-free, everything free, because then you don't know which one is actually... It's
that big bang thing, doesn't it? I mean, I've been on that journey myself. I'd say I'm not dairy-free, I'm milk-free, because I cut all dairy out, because of, just trying to improve gut health and all of that kind of thing. And it immediately, nearly, within days, had a different sense of energy.
It can do that.
And, but then started to introduce occasionally a bit of cheese and other dairy, but it's just, I now know it's cream and milk.
Yeah, those two.
Particularly milk. Just cut that out.
Yeah.
Put a plant-based in instead of that, and it made a big difference. But it was that kind of process I followed. Something had to change. Let's do it, and then put some stuff back in.
Yeah, and that's great. Like, people are starting to open up to those things, and there are those, different types of milks now: soya milk, almond milk, oat milk. There's so many different ones.
You don't feel freaky when you go and order a coffee now and you say, "Can I have coconut or almond?"
So normal now. So normal. 10 years ago, soya milk was the only thing that was there. There was nothing.
You've been on that journey for that long, haven't you?
So I've seen the market grow like unbelievable amounts. And obviously that's helped with like social media. People have been more aware of it. It's helped my growth, I guess. But I've never come at it as I'm gluten free. I'm on, because there was a phase where gluten free was like the next like diet or craze. And I've never really positioned myself like that. I've sort of followed this way because it's how I feel better. But if you want to use normal flour, that's up to you. That's your choice. It's your own journey.
It's your body, isn't it? And it's what works for you and for your body.
Yeah.
And where do you sit on the vegan, plant-based, eating kind of meat and fish and the health kind of aspects of that?
So I eat fish occasionally, probably 3 or 4, maybe once a week, something like that, 3 or 4 times a month. I obviously don't have dairy, which means I don't have cheese, things like that. I have an egg. I react to eggs as well. So I'm pretty much, apart from the fish that I eat, I'm plant-based pretty much. So 95% of the way that I eat is plant-based. The book follows suit with that as well. There's 80 recipes in the book, 4 are fish recipes. The rest are all vegan. So, and that's just the way that I've felt my best. I've stopped eating meat 2.5, 3 years ago. And I don't know, I've just been on a journey myself.
I was going to say that is quite it's interesting, considering the sort of influencer space you're in, considering the cookbook is you're not coming at it by the sounds of it, you know it all and here it is and here's the solution. You're still exploring and experimenting yourself. Yeah,
no, I am. And I didn't want to position it as, a fully vegan book when I still eat a bit of fish myself, and I do enjoy, like, there's a fish pie in there. Love that. It's one of my favorite recipes. So there's some salmon burgers. So I've put in, the book follows my lifestyle, and I've made it so that if you are, there's no, because with a lot of vegan books, it's quite preachy. There's a lot of my friends, I was asking them, I said, would you go and buy a vegan book, even though they might want to reduce their meat, but they just said that they feel it's a little bit not approachable in a way. So I wanted to really, like I said earlier, make it as accessible for everyone. And throughout the book, I've mentioned whether you can add chicken or prawns or tofu or whatever you want into certain recipes. Like, there's no judgment there.
If you're doing a curry, it's easy to do that.
It's up to you what you want to add into it. So there's no judgment sort of from my side.
So great, really good conversation around nutrition and a really honest perspective from you, James, which is great. I suppose we're really intrigued, aspects of this is it's a personal and a business kind of podcast. So the business side of you is being a social kind of influencer, writing the blog and growing. So by the sounds of it, that all started just from people kind of wanting to know a bit more about your story, and you just started sharing it on a blog. But what's that journey been like for you, James?
Crazy. So like I said, friends and family said, you need to share some recipes. So I thought, create a website, chuck all the recipes on there. It took me 6 months to build it because at the time I was still only 40% recovered. So I was still really, on the journey. And I took some terrible photos, wrote up the recipe and put it online. And I thought, okay, well, I'll open an Instagram and a Facebook page at the same time, and friends can just follow me there. They'll know when I've put a new bad photo out and there's a recipe there. And I thought that was, rather than me texting people, I've put a new recipe out, I thought just put it there, they can follow me, that'd be it. You know, that's fine.
It's just a channel. It's just a way of them finding what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. Getting updates, whatever. Then random people started following.
Did that feel weird?
Really odd. Yeah, it was very odd. And I actually gained probably 5,000 Instagram followers in the first 2 months.
Wow. And
out of nowhere. Like, I mean, I was just putting...
So you never saw it as being a business?
No, not at all. I just... Yeah, well, and also we were talking 5 years ago, influencer sort of bloggers weren't as big as they are now. Like, I never even knew that was a career path. Like, I didn't even think of it like that. Whereas now it's quite normal for someone to be like, oh, I want to do YouTube, I want to do Twitch, I want to do all this stuff. And that back then it wasn't really a thing. So I just kept turning up. I was like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, why what's going on?
This is freaky.
Yeah. And I was getting really, random people were making recipes, and I was like, this is great. That's probably the best feeling I still get. Is when someone says, I've made this, I loved it, my kids loved it, my husband loved it, whatever. So that's always the best feeling I've ever got from it. And I just kept turning up.
Yeah.
I tried to get a book 4 years ago. I had meetings in London, actually in the same office that I now have my publisher now, different publisher but within the same building. Went there, was really high on hopes, left feeling like it was going to happen. I felt like it was my time, and it didn't happen. Right. So that was quite sad. Yeah, I was pretty upset with that, but I just bounced back from it really, and just thought, right, this is what I love to do. Just keep going, see what happens. And I didn't really turn it. I wouldn't say would say it was a business until about 2 years in.
Okay.
So probably 2.5, 3 years ago. When I got married, I thought, right, now's the time to just... It's just a weird thing. I was like, right, life's a little bit more serious now, I'd say. And I thought, right, now's the time to do something more with it. But I've always kept the same journey with it. Like, there's I don't feel like it's a big business or things like that. It's just a natural progression into it.
And how... Again, I suppose from the business perspective and the business model, how have you monetarized that following?
So, I work with brands. So the first 2 years like I said, I didn't really work with any brands. No. I was turning things down all the time because I just wanted to build that loyal base there, and not feel like people were... I don't know, I just always felt like didn't want to be a sellout or anything like that.
So you're building the following for the right, with a sense of purpose and that fulfillment, and people enjoyed what...
And that's what I got my enjoyment out of, seeing other people enjoy the content. And then when I turned it more into a business, I started working with brands, but I've always kept it very authentic. If I'm using the brand of almond milk that I use, I'll work with that brand. Or if there's a new gluten-free product that I really like, I've always kept it really... you're never going to sort of see me do some teeth whitening or things like that. It's very authentic to my style and content, and a lot of people don't actually really always know that, because it's so similar, the content, you won't actually know that it's an ad anyway. Because I create the same style of content whether it's an ad or free content. I think that's done really well with people, and I'm very upfront when I am getting paid for things, and I make it very clear, and everyone knows when it is a paid post. I'm never hiding anything.
No.
So I work with brands. I had an ebook a while ago that I sold personally, but most of it comes through working with brands, and then obviously the book deal as well.
And do the brands now approach you, or is it you approaching the brands? How does that model kind of work?
They approach me now. Back in the start, when I started to work with brands, I approached a lot of them and went with it that way. And then I got a brand agent, probably 2 years ago, because I was getting emails coming in. I was trying to, my skill set is creating recipes and having, enjoying that. It's not reading contracts and doing all of, chasing and doing all this stuff. So I thought, okay, it was a brilliant time for me to get someone like that on. So I've been working with him for a few years, and that's been really helpful. Just allows me to do what I do best, really. So that's been really helpful. When they come to me, they'll either come through Instagram or email, and I pass it through to him, and he's sort of just middleman's between me and the brand.
Right, so you can focus.
Yeah.
And I suppose, again, most business owners, leaders that are just putting social out there, you can feel pressurized about, even when you're just doing it from a marketing or an awareness perspective, you feel pressurized that you need to put some regular posts out there.
Yeah.
So that pressure must be immense when it's what you do.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a time when you've thought, I don't know what to post, I don't know what to do next?
Yeah, so I've learnt that a lot over the last year. I've really improved on like trying to reduce like the pressure on myself, because I started to realise that I'm the only one that's putting pressure on myself to like post.
Yeah.
You know, if people don't see me for a few days, that's fine. Like
Okay.
that,
Yeah.
and I always was like, oh, I need to post every day. I need someone. I need to do this. I need to do that. And then I realised that actually, it's only me that's saying that. No one,
Right.
you know. Sometimes people wouldn't even think about it if I didn't turn up for a few days. They're just, you know, it's so normal. People have, you know, work Monday to Friday, have 2 days off. Whereas in the world that I'm in, it is always on.
24/7.
Yeah, it's answering DMs, it's talking to people, it's connecting, it's posting, it's sharing a story, it's, I don't know, it's just always on.
Yeah.
So it's quite hard to detach from that, and I've started to be a little bit more scheduled about what I'm doing. I tried to do things in advance a little bit more, so I'm take a bit of pressure off myself. And you know, some days I'm just like, nah, I just need a bit of me time. And I'm not someone that shares deep into my life. Like I sort of have my barriers of like what I show, I guess, and just
And it's more about the food, the
yeah,
recipes,
it's a lot about food,
the nutrition, the healthy eating, that side of things.
And then a bit of like, you know, into my life a little bit more, but I'm not like crazy sharing. Like,
do you feel uncomfortable when you do that?
Not so much now. I did at the start,
okay.
because I'm quite a private person, so I was always a little bit worried of people sort of knowing where I was, or don't know. Just now I'm not that fussed about it, but I don't know. I just sort of have a sense of what I want to show and what I want to just keep to myself, type thing.
And you've sort of alluded it to there, and the bit of it that I think is really strange in the model, isn't it? It's not just the posting, it's the follow-up, it's the messages, it's the DM stuff. It must take hours of each and every day, doesn't it?
Yeah, DMs, though, Instagram DMs are quite full on. Yeah, okay. It can be. It's not all the time, but like if there's something that resonates with people, you know, inbox is just like bang, bang, bang. So it's quite, and I'm someone that I've always had this thing, like if someone's got the time to message me and ask a question, I've got the time to reply.
And that's about being authentic, isn't it? Because there's an easy way to just try and outsource all of that and get somebody else to deal with it.
Yeah, and that way I will never do that. Like it'll always be coming from me. Obviously, it reaches a point where you can't answer all questions, because if you're getting thousands of messages a day or a week, that's like intense. But I think people probably don't understand. Say you get like 100 messages in a day, that's like getting 100 text messages a day. Like that is a lot, you know. That is a lot.
In a business world, it's the same as getting those 100 emails. And you look at your inbox and go, "Oh my god, what am I going to do with this?"
And you reply to one, and another one comes in. You reply, you know, it's
and then they message back.
Yeah,
like, no, so it's not supposed to come to an end.
Yeah, it's very intense. But I do love like writing back to people, and I love interacting with them, and I think that's why I have done well as well, because I'm not just someone that's never replying, and a lot of people don't ever reply. You know, that's quite common for people to not reply, and I think I've got my personality across by engaging with people and doing that, because I think that's just me. You know, that's what I like to do. Yeah. So
for the business owners, business leaders listening to the podcast, any tips on how they should approach their own kind of social media? Now, obviously, they don't want to become influencers. They don't want to grow that kind of space and that size following, but it's really important for them to have a presence and to do it properly. Any hints and tips?
Stories obviously really important, as with anything, getting your story across. I think a lot of businesses, it's easier for me because the brand is around me. I think when the brand's like, I don't know, about some product, it
Yeah.
can be quite hard to like get it across. But I got a friend that's trying to start up in the golf space, and I just said to him, show how you're going about it, do more behind the scenes rather than the actual product itself. Like, educate people on like why you do what you do, why you're coming up with it, why it's different, things like that. And I think that's getting in behind the scenes can actually be, because social media is all about adding value, right? So like, someone will follow me because they think I add value to their life. Otherwise, why would they? You know, if I'm not going to add value to someone,
if it's just going to create noise,
they don't need it. So it's all about understanding that someone wants value from that, from them following you. Yeah. So it's learning how you can add value to them in some way, whether it's free content or I don't know. It's
something interesting.
Something
showing
interesting.
Something that stories,
like behind the scenes of how you create glasses, for example. Someone might not know how to do that, or because I wouldn't have a clue where you start to make lenses, or all of that. That's education. And I think that's what people want more than just pictures of you trying to sell them glasses. They want to know what it is and why it's there and how you create it. So I think that's really important. Great
hints and tips. So you talked about, let's have a conversation around the book and your journey to that point as well, because obviously you talk about being knocked back 4 years ago, but now at the brink of the book being released, the 3rd of March.
3rd of March. So 2 weeks from when we're recording this. So it's been a journey, and like I said, I got turned down 4 years ago. But I was really down because I thought, well, is that my chance? Is that it? Because it's quite common in the publishing world that when you've had your shot, that can be it, unless you like suddenly go massive or whatever.
So how did the original shot of being published come about then?
How did it come about? I think I've always wanted to bring out my own book, and I think I reached out to a literary agent, because a literary agent is really important to help get a publishing deal. So I got a literary agent in London. They pitched it to publishers. We had 4 meetings, which is actually a good amount. Normally you don't really get that many. So I
feeling confident at that stage,
and the reaction was really good. They all 4 really loved me, my story, my journey, everything like that. But they just said I wasn't ready, and back then I was like,
how do you define not being
ready? I don't know. And back then I was like, well, no, I am ready. I thought I was ready. 4 years later, I look back and I'm like, I wasn't ready. They were totally right. I was way too early in my journey. I probably was only 50-60% recovered, so it was probably even a risk for them, in terms of could go downhill, could go backwards. And so I look back and there's a lot of pressure to it. You've got to come up with the recipes, you've got to help promote it, do podcasts, do interviews.
They need you on your A game, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And I wasn't ready for it. Even the amount I've learned in the last 4 years, even social media wise, and like business and just things like that, has been incredible. And I wasn't ready for it, so they were totally right. At the time I was like, no, I am ready, because I thought I was.
We'd all feel like, give it to me now.
And then I had a few publishers reach out to me privately about a year ago, and I thought maybe it's my time to have a go again. So I got a different literary agent. She passed it out to her whole network. I think 6 came back. So the 2 that reached out to me privately, the 4 extras that she'd brought in. So we had 6 good meetings. The actual 2, really random, the 2 that reached out to me privately didn't make an offer, which is really odd.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
And then the 4 that we brought in extra all made offers, and then it went to sort of a bit of a bid off.
Wow, that must have been a very proud moment.
Yeah.
Because that's a very unusual thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So I was just so happy, because I was like, oh, it just, like, this is going to happen. Like, I've been working so hard for it and so long, and I never thought, it might potentially not happen. And so when I had 4 come in, I was like, well, this is brilliant. And then it was a case of getting to pick which I wanted, which was great as well. So the meeting shifted from me like pitching myself to then them pitching to me, which is really weird. Like I was just so happy to for one of them to want it. So it transitioned, and then I got to pick the publisher that I loved the most and felt like, had the same enthusiasm about it. So that's what I did, and I went with the ones that I am now headline.
Great.
And
congratulations.
Yeah, and it's been I signed the deal in March 2021, and now we're obviously, where are we, we're February 2022. So it's been there's so much behind the scenes that people don't really see. There's obviously creating the recipes, testing them, going up to, I was in London for a few weeks for the book shoot and the recipes being shot and the front cover and all of that stuff. And now it's felt like ages, but now it's sort of here.
The reality's coming. How do you feel now?
Nervous. I think I know it's going to be stand out on the shelf. Like it's so different when you flick through it. It's just so easily laid out that I think it really stands out. Just a photo of every recipe, that was one of the most important things for me, because I think if you don't give someone that idea of what it could look like, or because we all eat with your eyes, don't you? So you sort of see what you want to create. So that was a big thing for me. So you flick through, all the recipe photos are on the right hand side, that draws you in, and you might have a look to see how to create it. So that was one of the things. Colourful, simple, easy to follow, and that's
can't wait to see a copy. So as we kind of wrap up our conversation, just a few things is, and if you don't mind me asking, do you, given that journey you've been on, and that incredibly low point, which I can't even imagine, do you live in fear that you could return to that place one day?
No.
Okay, and why not?
Just because I even from my golf and stuff, I've always been someone that just doesn't look back in a way. I don't, if I had a bad, I learned all of this from golf. Have a bad hole, not a lot you can do about it now. Just move on from it. And I live like that now. If I make a mistake, I just sort of learn from it and move forward. I don't dwell on it. I don't, and with my health, I just think, if it happens, there's not a lot I can do about it. I don't.
Great attitude. All you can do is do what you can to prevent it happening and live healthily, I suppose.
And live, listen to my body and live within myself. And I was obviously very scared of COVID and things like that, and that set me back. But I had that, and I was fine, and so I've come a long way. And I just don't think you don't gain anything from. You don't gain anything from living in fear of going back to where you were. And it's just,
there is the kind of Steve Jobs adage: you sometimes don't realise how you've got somewhere until you look back and join up the dots and all of that. But you look back and think, if only I had become a elite professional golfer. Is there a little bit of you that still nags at that?
No, I don't. A lot of the guys that I used to compete with back when I was sort of 16, 17, 18, they're on TV now playing on tour. But I don't know. I'm back to playing golf. I'm pretty good again, but I don't know. I love what I do now.
It would sound like that's my philosophy. Is everything happens for a reason.
It does.
Can't live with regret. You just kind of got to move forward day by day and accept that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, I totally believe that. I would never want to go back to where I was, obviously, but I've learned a lot like about myself, and I feel like maybe it was meant to be. This was potentially my path that I was supposed to take. Don't know. No. I mean, if you told me when I was back in my bed 10 years ago, 12 years ago, that I'd have my own book, that would just it wouldn't even sound.
At a point at which you couldn't read a book.
I'd have been happy to just feel somewhat well again, and now we're here, and it's been an incredible journey.
Fantastic. So throughout this conversation and having read your sort of backstory a little bit before we met today, you're clearly a really resilient person. So, how do you keep that resilience going, and how do you define resilience for yourself?
I'd say just someone that doesn't, for me it means someone that doesn't give up at sort of any hurdle. They just keep going, believing in their core message, I guess. And for me it's been a passion. So when I got turned down for the book, for example, I've had I've had loads of up and downs, but I just keep turning up because I enjoy doing it. And resilience is crucial, I think, because you're going to have bad days, good days, bad days. I have it, good days in business, good days in my health, bad days in business, bad days in my health. I just take it as it is and just move on. I think it's about being strong like that.
Perfect. So final question is, say every time, it's the Evolve to Succeed podcast. So there's got to end with, what's your own personal, and I'm really intrigued to know this, what's your own personal definition of success?
Just being happy with like what I've achieved. Like, to me, success isn't like how much I make or like how many books I have, for example. I think for me it's just enjoying what I do, cooking. As soon as I start becoming really like worried or stressed about it, that's not good for me. Like, I just always want to be happy and enjoy the process as much as possible. So that, to me, that's success.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So if our listeners do want to learn more about you, James, where can they go? Where can they find out? What's the book called? Where can they find out about the book when it's launched? All of those things, James.
So the book's called Healthy Living James, which I just wanted to keep it open. My first book, hopefully of many, shows the ethos about like myself, the recipes, and it just gives that, my story, it gives that first look into my content for new people. Then my blog's healthylivingjames.co.uk, Instagram Healthy Living James, Facebook, everywhere it's just Healthy
Living James.
Yeah, that's it. That's where people can find me.
Thank you, James. It's been great. I've really enjoyed our conversation. It's been great having you on the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thanks for helping.
Thank you for listening to the Evolve to Succeed podcast. My hope with every episode is that you've learned something new or heard something that challenged your way of thinking and further motivated you on your path towards becoming a more knowledgeable, informed and inspired individual and business leader. If you enjoyed this episode, then please help us by rating, reviewing and subscribing. We really value your feedback and would love to have you along for future episodes. And please don't forget to learn more about Evolve by going to evolvemembers.com. Thank you for listening. See you next week.